So there are some things that I think complicate gender dysphoria that nobody talks about. And the reason so many don't talk about it is because they don't understand it, or they don't realize that this is going on inside of their system. Talking about internal trauma in this lifetime and past lifetimes. This is something that has complicated my journey with this. It puts me into times where I'm frozen. I get in a frozen state and I can't make a move. I get to where I can't decide whether I can integrate this and just live as a male, or do I really need to transition? I think what happens with most people with gender dysphoria is they feel the dysphoria, they know they have it, they know how they feel, just the feelings themselves. They know that internally they feel like the other gender, and that causes a lot of distress. And if it's causing enough distress, it usually leads to transition. But I don't think a lot of people that transition end up understanding the full range of trauma that's going on inside of them. So even if they transition, that may help. Yes, it can alleviate the dysphoria and can help with daily life. But if they don't actually work on the trauma inside of them that they've dealt with since childhood or other times in their life, then that's still going to persist. It's not going to, the trauma won't just go away. The healing that you need to do in your body internally will not just go away from gender transition. So this is what's causing me such issue, because I think what's happened to me is I have been doing a lot of healing on myself for a long time, and I became self-aware of myself in late 2019. I've talked about it before. It was after a horrible relationship had gone wrong, and that was a catalyst for me that woke me up to a point of realizing my life wasn't what I thought it was, that life itself was not what I thought it was, and that I was living like these fake facades. I was putting on masks. I was living for other people. I was trying to please my parents, trying to please friend groups, girlfriends, workplaces, altering myself per each situation because of societal conditioning, and trying to people please this person and that person and this group and that group. And I had to start looking internally at that. It's a long process when you become self-aware. Now, it's a different journey for everyone, but it is not an overnight thing, especially if it happens to you later in life. This happened to me when I was 44. I'm 50 now, and I have done a lot of work and I've understood a lot of things, but it's taken me through having to understand that I was doing things for other people and not myself. It made me start having to realize and face the fact that I had dealt with gender dysphoria in puberty and as a teenager, and that I had cross-dressed and blocked it out. It made me start having to face the fact that I had bisexual thoughts and I had repressed them and condemned myself. It made me start facing religious programming. I would bounce around from Christianity to forms of spirituality, to Buddhism, to exploring other Hinduism, to exploring a wide range of things, Satanism, different philosophies, jumping into one thing, then jumping into another. I went back to Christianity a few times. And now it's taken, that's like 2019, you're talking about, well, late 2019, it's going on 6 years to get me to where I'm at right now. And I am just now understanding a lot in recent times about internal trauma. And that is the source of much of everything that we deal with is unresolved trauma. And that is now a lot of the basis of what I'm doing to work on myself. So because I've realized I have this internal trauma, and then take on top of that all the metaphysical experiences I've had since becoming self-aware, I've had meditative experiences that took me through past life regression that I wasn't even intending to do. But I was doing meditations for long lengths of time and spending a lot of time in nature. And I was putting so much time into this. And when you do, you connect to things you never thought you could connect to. You connect to energy in a way and feel things that you never thought you could feel. And people, they poo-poo on this stuff all the time because they just don't put the effort in or the time to see if it actually works. But when you have a catalyst or something happen to you that realizes life isn't what you thought it was, and you start going down the rabbit hole of the metaphysical and you explore it, and you start having critical thought about what life is and not just going off what people want to tell you, and you start exploring for yourself and testing out theories and testing out hypothesis, you some things happen. And that's what started to happen to me. I ended up remembering 2 past lives. And one in particular was of an ancient time. I either think it's really ancient or it might have been from a Native American time. And I was a woman. And from what I gather from just a little bit I've seen of it, is I could kind of see what I look like and get an emotional feelings and memory. It's kind of hard to explain unless you go through this. You don't always exactly just see things like a movie, because this stuff is stored in your cells. And there's a name for it. Well, cellular memory, cellular debris, left over from lifetime to lifetime, trauma and experiences carried over lifetime to lifetime. But this world is so dense, when we reincarnate here on this earth, the energy here is so dense, we forget the previous lifetime. We forget what we lived, but it's still stored in us, and that trauma can carry over. Phobias that you have no reason why you have the phobias. You could have phobias about, say, heights or flying or swimming, or you're scared of this or you're scared of that. You have extreme anxiety, but if it didn't come from childhood abuse or come from some form of severe abuse, where did it come from? These things, I believe, can be carried over from past life things that happened. There was something in a past life or several past lives that caused a particular phobia, and you've been carrying it with you. But if you end up seeing it or recognizing it possibly in a past life regression, then you can work to maybe solve it in this life. Or you don't even have to have the regression. You could just come to an understanding about living many lifetimes and realizing, even though you may not have a memory of something that caused a phobia or caused you to act a certain way, you can still kind of look at it and analyze it and delve into it and see if maybe there's a way to resolve it. There may be, there may not be. But this also goes into internal trauma. And the other past life for me, I remember, was not peaceful at all. And I believe it was my recent one. And I was a woman as well. I can see also in that life kind of what I look like and what I gather, about the same height, darker hair, was pretty, and I was built a little more curvier, but I had a lot of abuse. There was childhood abuse. There was SA. There was, I believe that led me going into things to where I believe I worked in the adult industry in various ways. And it explains a lot for me now, because what's complicated with my gender dysphoria too is there's a really dark part associated with that lifetime where I think of things that were done with me to where you could say misogyny. There was a lot of misogyny, but at the same time, from what I feel in that life, it's hard to talk about because it's just so dark. I was attracted to it because it was done. Things were done with me that ended up, and we see this happen with people where certain things happen to them and traumatic events happen to them, then they can become attracted to certain things. And I found that there's a link with some of the thoughts I'll get, and I've had to really analyze that and sit with myself about that, and I've realized that it links back to that past life. There was misogyny and there was abuse and there was a lot of things that were dark. And we see that happen today all of the time with the adult industry. There's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of misogyny. A lot of the women and men that are in it, there have been abuse in their lives and trauma in their lives. We always talk about just the women. They probably deal with the worst end of it. But there's been men too that end up there and they've got just as big of a hole in their heart. A lot of them are living in just as a dark place as the women that are involved. And I'm not saying this is for everybody that's in the adult industry. I'm just saying we know there's a lot in that end up there because of traumas they dealt with. So this is what links back, a lot of this links back to my past life. So this complicates my gender dysphoria because I don't think most people with gender dysphoria ever realize it's linked. I'm not saying it's all linked, but a lot of it is linked to trauma from childhood, trauma from past life. So I'm giving you my examples of the past life trauma, but now let's also link my trauma now in this life. The gender dysphoria would also be exasperated for me in this life because one, I can remember only 2 past lives. I was a woman, one peaceful, one abused. And in this life, I grew up in a chaotic environment a lot of the time. There were moments of stability. I had no stable father figure. I had 3 stepfathers. My current one I don't talk to because I just couldn't get along with him anymore. I mean, it was just, he was condemning me. He was always condemning me. I was always having to people please. I would have to act a certain way with him. And I put up with it for years. I'm not saying he's all bad, he's not. But there was a lot of these type of qualities from the time he came into my life at 12. There was a lot of bullying aspects on an emotional level, a lot of immaturity. I could never be safe with him as a teenager, talking to him about things that would have been important to talk to him about growing up, sexuality-wise, to grow up to be a decent man-wise. I didn't have any men in my life like that. The father before that was largely absent. Looking back on him, I could pretty safely say he was very much probably a depressant. He passed away in his 50s. He didn't take care of himself. And that, I think, goes along with the fact of how depressed he always was. He was quiet. He never really took up time with me. Hardly at all. My stepfather, when I was a toddler, he was an alcoholic. He hit my mother. I have some memory of that. There's memories, physical memories I don't have, but my mom has confirmed I was around when other things happened. So those things too, a lot of people also don't realize things you don't remember physically that stuff stays stored in your cells. So take all of this, past life memories, past life trauma stored in your cells, then the trauma in the life you're currently living. If you've had childhood trauma, if you witnessed horrific things, if you witnessed, like me, my mother being hit by an alcoholic father, I was kidnapped as a baby. I can't remember that. I'm sure it affected me. And that all that stuff happens to you, it gets stored in your cells. Those things can cause you anxiety later in life, and you're wondering where the anxiety came from. You're wondering why you're fearful, because something could have happened to you as a baby, a toddler, and you don't remember it physically, but it don't take away the fact that you were traumatized at the time it happened, or you wouldn't have cried. Babies wouldn't cry if they did not understand what was going on at the time it was going on to them. I mean, a child would not cry when they got hurt. A toddler wouldn't cry when they get hurt physically, or somebody hurts them physically or emotionally, but they do cry. They may forget the memory physically, but it affected their cells, affected their internal body, and the trauma is stored. And then later on, that causes issues. It can cause anxiety issues and depression, and cause social issues with people. So in my life, 3 stepfathers, there was issues with each one. And again, I'm not saying they were all bad, because I don't think there's many people that are just all bad. There are some people who have done horrendous things that, I think there are some that are almost completely all bad. But my stepdads had there were good points with them, but I'm just saying mostly it was negative things affected me, and I didn't have a strong male figure in my life. So do I think that contributed to gender dysphoria? Yes, I think it contributed to it. And I remember at 11 years old in puberty, I had feminine feelings and female feelings I didn't understand. And then by the time my mother got with my 3rd stepfather, about a year into that relationship, I was cross-dressing with, I liked trying on her pantyhose and her high heels. And there were certain women I would envision me looking a certain way. And eventually I quit doing it. And that came from religious programming, because I thought there was this hell and I was going to go there for doing what I was doing, or there was going to be this punishing invisible God figure. I don't believe any of that now. What I now believe, after about 6 years of exploring religious programming, and going back and forth with different modalities, is, and through all the meditation I've done, all the work I've done on myself, I've come to the conclusion, for me, of reincarnation, because I had the past life regressions. And I now believe there's a source energy, and that the source energy is where we go back to. You could call that God, but it's not like a punishing God from the Bible. It's not a punishing force. What I get from it anytime I've connected to it in meditation is pure love, is a very high vibrational love. Not some being that's watching everything you're doing and waiting for you to F up and going to send you to some pit with some other being. No. It's just there's negative and positive polarity here on this earth, and everything's made up of energy. And that's what I now believe. And I believe that we can create things in our life, but to do that, we have to resolve the trauma that's within us. And when I tell you this is an ongoing process for me. I go up and down with things, but if you'd have known me over 6 years ago, I don't resemble what you're seeing or hearing now. I mean, not very much. I mean, there's things I liked back then I still like. Don't think I'm not going to say, oh, everything about me throughout my entire life was a lie. No. But I was one way for one person, one way for the next. And I used to think, oh, this is just a problem with me. But really, most people out there, they're doing this. Some not as extreme as others. People are hiding certain aspects of themselves and portraying certain aspects to certain people for approval or people pleasing or to get along, or they're going into jobs lying about this and that to get into a certain position with a job, maybe that they don't even like. People do that all the time. I used to do that. What I'm saying is there's certain things, yes, I like from back then that I still like now. But then there's a lot of things I liked back then I kept hidden. And now I don't keep them hidden. I'm so much more of an open book now. Like, just simple examples, music. And I share most of my music here on YouTube. And I used to hide certain aspects of that. Or because somebody might not think I'm cool. Oh, I mean, it's such BS when you really think about, oh, I'm worried about what somebody thinks about a certain songs I like. I mean, really? Movies. I used to act like I only like certain movies, or because this movie might be too feminine and I'm going to be called names. I don't care anymore, Yeah, I like all kinds of stuff. I like a wide array of movies, TV shows. I like a wide array of music and genres. And I used to hide certain aspects of myself, and the femininity too, which this is complicated for me because I don't do this everywhere. I feel safe on YouTube with exploring makeup and being able to practice it, and working with this with my female feelings. I can work with more here. In society, no, I don't, because I have this internal battle still with trying to heal internal trauma and past life trauma. And I've come a long way, but I still get in these stuck places. I get in these stuck places to where I'll get fearful. And this is one of the things that through trauma healing you want to try to get past, is being fearful. I mean, sometimes it's normal to be scared, but being fearful about every move you make, because if you're fearful about every move you make, you get stuck. And I believe that since everything's made up of energy and negative and positive polarity, that if we focus our energy, say, just on fear, or we focus our energy just on anxiety, or we're focusing our energy on just the negative, people like that are just negative. Everything comes out of their mouth is negative. How do you think they feel every day? People like that oftentimes have all kinds of health issues. They have headaches. They are angry all the time. They attract even more of that into their lives because that's the energy they're projecting. So if you project negativity all of the time, anger all of the time, anxiety all of the time, and fear, it's going to come more into your life. I've seen it happen in my own life. It will come more and more into your life. But I'm telling you this because I still find myself fighting with it at times, to where I get fearful because I'm aware of my trauma, where I don't think most gender dysphoric people are. I'm aware of the past lives. I don't think most gender dysphoric people end up delving into the metaphysical and end up going as deep as I have to understand these things. They just understand they feel the other gender. They don't really work on their internal trauma. They transition. And I'm not saying it don't work out. It does. It works out for many people. But I think it becomes more complicated to transition when you're aware of these things. That's what I'm saying. When you're aware of your internal trauma and that it comes from a couple of past lives maybe, and that you're aware of trauma you've dealt with in childhood, and it becomes complicated to transition, because you're like, well, if I keep working on the trauma, if I keep working on the things that I know I didn't have male figures in my life that probably exasperated my dysphoria. I know I was bullied by boys all through school. I was bullied by teenagers. There have been some women cause me issues in my life, mostly in relationships. But as far as bullying, it mostly came from boys and then men. And that also, I think, exasperated my dysphoria. So I have these past lives of being just women that I can remember. And then the dysphoria came up at 11 and at 13, and I've had it come up in little increments throughout my adult years. And the bi thoughts that I would have to repress. I would repress because I thought it was all bad, and I wanted to people please people, and I didn't want people to think of me a certain way. So it's become so complicated for me now to say I'll transition, because I feel like if I keep working on the internal trauma and working on resolving this, that I might can integrate it and live as in the male body as I am, not exactly as I am, I wouldn't go back to being a fake guy. I wouldn't go back to being a fake facade. But I would integrate features I have now. Long hair, and could I live with having facial hair? See, that's the other thing. I haven't had anything done to myself as far as transition. I just know how I feel, but I also know I have all this trauma that's not completely resolved. So I guess in my mind is if I resolve it, then I might can integrate, because transition is, let's face it, it's not easy. I think about that. I applied for a grant. I did apply for a grant recently for hair removal. I was turned down, and I don't take it personal. There were so many people that applied. They could only pick so many. But it did make me think, well, maybe I'm not even supposed to, because I didn't get that grant. It doesn't mean I'm not supposed to, but I don't have the money to pay for these things. I've been out of work for some time because of the things I deal with. And the jobs I have applied for that I think I can cope with and deal with in this society have not called me back. And that's a trauma too. Societal trauma with workplaces and abuse in workplaces. And I've talked about that before. I've been abused, and I know many of you have. And that's something else people won't talk about. That's another trope that people will try to bully you with. Well, this is the way it is. This is the way life is. And everybody does it. And you'll hear that BS, and you'll hear that crap. And that's abuse I've taken from men too, mostly. But there's women that think like that too. Hustle culture. So it's been hard for me to perform in society at all. And that's another factor. I'm stuck in this place where each day I'm thinking of trying to integrate this. I keep working on the trauma, but at the same time I'm burning my face shaving. getting all kinds of razor bumps that I can cover pretty well with makeup, but it looks horrendous when it's not covered up. I get these little cuts, I'll get these nicks, and then I have to think about that. I'm like, God, can you keep going on like that? Sometimes it calms down. Back in August, I let some facial hair grow out. I had a lower dysphoria for a little while. I thought it would last, but it didn't. It came back up after a month, and then it kind of calmed down again in October. But again, it was short-lived, and it came back up. And then when it comes up, it stays up. I do this to myself, and I'm sure a lot of you can, with dysphoria, you know what I'm talking about. You're shaving upward, and you're trying to go against the grain, and you're trying to get rid of it, and you just want a bare face. You just want to look like other girls, and that's what I'll go through. It's like, why can't I just have that bare face? And I do go through that, and it hurts me. See, I'm sitting here telling you, I'm going through this. It's like therapy here, because I can see how I feel when I'm talking about it, but it still don't take away the fact of I have such a hard time dealing with most workplaces, society. I've tried to get at home jobs too, hasn't worked out. I'm still looking for that too. That would be a dream if I could just work from home. I'm passionate about YouTube, but my channel's not big enough right now to generate income from that. So I'm trying to look for other things. But I can't afford HRT or any of that. But then I think about, again, like I was telling you, I'm in this stuck place a lot of times of integration. Do I need the HRT? Can I integrate this? I'm aware of my trauma. The only other trans person that I know that has talked about this, and there's probably others, the only public one I know that has talked about this is Blair White. And she transitioned when she was 20. She's 32, and she's not detransitioning. She's happy. She looks beautiful. But she talks about how in the last couple of years, she became aware of this in herself, of internal trauma, and that she needed to further resolve it. And she has said that she would not detransition. She thinks she was meant to transition, but she was just bringing up a point that she looks back at when she transitioned, now that she's aware of her internal trauma, and that she understands now that she was probably largely dissociating when she transitioned because she had not had any therapy, had not worked on any trauma. She, if you may not know much of her background, her dad was in a cult. Her dad's side of the family was in a cult. He was abusive to her. Her brother was into drug usage. And her dad also passed away when she was 19 before she transitioned. She had gender dysphoria from a very early age, but she was just saying that when she transitioned at 20, she thinks she didn't know about her trauma or about trying to resolve any of it. And she thinks going into the other gender, a lot of it, not everything, but a lot of it had to do with that would help her get away from the trauma that she experienced as being a male. And I think a lot of that, I guess that's what I'm saying about myself, except the difference with me and Blair is that I'm aware, while much older, my gender dysphoria came unbuckled and unglued. I had it younger, but not constant. It came unbuckled and unglued at about 45, after about 2021 when I was 45, when it really came unbuckled and unglued full time, plaguing me a lot. And so I'm much older than when she was. Not to say that people are transitioning all the time at a later age, but it's just the fact that I'm older than her, but I'm also aware, but pre-transition where she wasn't, so it's complicating things with me a lot in my mind because I can see where I could also be dissociating because males have abused me so much. I've been abused by males in my life so much, and at jobs too, mostly male abuses, that and I have these female feelings already, and the past life stuff. It's all I can remember is being a girl, and so I'm like, some of it would be, I think, dissociative to go, let me be a woman, and I can, because I'm disgusted. I guess that's what I'm saying. With the feelings I have in my heart, the past life trauma, it's like, why couldn't I, I'll go through those thoughts. I know why I was born a male in this life. I've discussed that before too. It's so I wouldn't experience even harsher trauma in this life. Because I think I was around a lot of seedy characters when I was a kid, and I think I would have experienced SA more in this life if I'd been born a girl again. But there's still that part of me. It's like, why couldn't you been born a girl again? Because the feelings are innately there in my heart. They're in my cells. But then there's that part of me knowing I want to dissociate, transition to being a woman in this life, also because all the abuses from males, it can disgust me being male. That's a lot of it, because the way other males have treated me. And I'm not saying I'm against all males, I'm not. There's some I find very attractive, but I'm just saying that I've been done wrong in a lot of ways, so I can think back and I can get upset, the things that have happened to me. So I think a lot of it's dissociation. And so anyway, when Blair's talked about that and talked about the things she dealt with, but she wasn't aware of her trauma, and she just now is. And there's a difference too, where she's a Christian now. She's not religious though, she don't belong to a religion, but I see similarities between me and her with exploration, because she has explored spirituality and went back and forth into things, and now she's in Christianity again, and I feel like she'll end up continuing to explore. I don't know where she'll end up, but I see a lot of what I've done with what she's doing as far as exploration, working on her internal self, trying to understand society more, understand the universe more, energy. And I can relate to that. I can totally relate to that. So anyway, that's where I'm at now. And I know it sounds, there's a lot to take in with all of that. And I wish I had an easy answer, but this is why I don't have an easy answer for everybody. And this is why sometimes you don't see me doing long form videos all the time, because I get in these stuck places. A couple of weeks ago, I did dissociate again in a way that energetically brought me down. The only difference is now when I dissociate, I won't stay there. I will come back up quicker because I've been working on myself so much. I belong to a group that works on trauma called Cycle Breakers. And that's with Jeremiah Schwartz. If you're curious, you can look him up. He has a channel on here about trauma healing. If you're curious into the modalities that we work on. And it really coincides with where I'm at now, with the belief systems I have. And the people on there are a safe space to talk about a lot of this stuff as well. So I work on the trauma healing, and I work on concepts too from a book called Reality Transurfing, which also deals with a lot of what I talk about with energy, with how we create our world, and what we focus on we create, what we focus on we bring in. So if we're focusing constantly on negative aspects of life, then we're going to bring in more of that. If something negative happens to us and we just dwell on that negative thing that happened to perpetuate it, there's a good chance that that situation will get worse, or we'll bring in another situation just like it. Or if you're hanging out with certain negative people, then you're probably going to draw in more of those same types of people. Its energy polarity draws the same polarity. Whereas if you change that polarity from that negative to the positive end of things, like you're grateful for what you have, you're happy for the things that are surrounding you, you're telling yourself you're congratulating yourself on the things that you do have, that can help bring in more positivity of things that you want. So it's a matter of recognizing energy. I'm not perfect at it at all. It's something I've been working on, like I said, in more recent months. But if you work on stuff like that, it can get to a point where you become more and more aware when you're falling into a pattern that you don't want to fall into. And you can bring yourself back out of the pattern, because if you stay in a negative pattern and you've been working on positive things and bringing in positive things, well, what tends to happen too is when you're bringing in more positive, there's these negative energies that will want to bring you down. And you'll be tested. Those negative energies will come in. You can call them entities. I used to call them demons. I really don't go that far with it now, but negative entities. There's another term called egregore. Egregore refers to a societal construct, which can become an entity. A thought form can become an entity. If you got thousands upon thousands of people thinking a certain way, a good example of an egregore are religious groups, political groups, ideologies. And a lot of you may not realize I don't belong to a specific ideology. I don't belong to a religion. I have beliefs, but I don't belong to a religion. I don't have a specific ideology. I'm an independent, technically, politically. I have critical thought. That's why I don't belong to ideologies. I'm not going to one-sided, just go one way on everything, because I find it ridiculous. It takes away complete critical thought, because there's no person I've ever met in my life, no single person I've ever met in my life, no matter how much I like that person, that I can look back on and say I would 100% agree with everything they say or do. People in ideologies and cults do that. No matter what, they get programmed and they'll go along with. It's people pleasing too. You're people pleasing the group that you're in. So I exercise critical thought, and an egregore represents those things I was talking about. And if you become part of an egregore, then that entity will affect you too, and affect your decision making, and affect where you direct your energy. And I don't want to do that. I've done it before. I've done these things I'm talking about. I belong to religions. I've belonged to political groups before. It's always turned out to be negative to do that for me. So anyway, I'm going to get off that subject. And then I guess ending this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of lighter subjects. This is just random. I was thinking about the movie Michael, and how I wanted to see it, because I grew up as a kid, and the first music I listened to as a kid, one of my better memories with music, was the first thing I was given was a 45 of Thriller by Michael Jackson. I think the B-side was a song called Can't Get Out of the Rain. But a Jackson 5, I think, was actually the B-side of that record. So yeah, I want to say Michael Jackson was the first musician I ever heard or got into as a kid at 8 years old. And Culture Club. My mother loved Culture Club. She listened to mostly country music, but she did get into some 80s pop. And she had some cassettes of Culture Club. And I thought Boy George was a woman when I was a kid. He was pretty. But yeah, and I still like Culture Club today. But Michael, the movie Michael, I was like, man, that looks, the critics hate it, but that don't surprise me. They hate it. They hate a lot of things that the general public ends up loving. And the general public seems to love that movie, and it looks like it's pretty good. So yeah, I was thinking about that, and it also made me think how much I liked the movie Elvis. And I think I've talked about Elvis on here before. I worked at Graceland, and I think it was 2001 when I worked at Graceland as a tour guide. And I really enjoyed the movie Elvis. I did see that in the theater. Now, I will say there were flaws with it. I liked it overall because it took a lot of the best parts of Elvis. It really did whitewash his life in quite a few ways. It showed some of his downfall, but it took the best of him and put in that movie, which worked well. There were some flaws because they left out a couple of his key girlfriends after he left Priscilla. Like when he passed away, the person that found him was his girlfriend Ginger Alden. She was there with him when she got out of bed and found him. They left that out of the movie. Ginger and the girlfriend before that, Linda Thompson, she was with him about 5 years after Priscilla. And they left Linda Thompson out. But the movie overall was very entertaining, and the stuff they did put in it was very unique, and I thought it was done well. And Austin Butler was amazing. He looked beautiful in it, and Elvis was beautiful. He's very hard to copy. Austin did an amazing job, and I think Jafar Jackson, that's what a choice. Take somebody from the family, and just the clips I've seen, I was like, wow, it looks amazing. As far as anything else, I was just thinking of new music, and I love the first two cuts I've heard off of Olivia Rodrigo. I don't know if any of you listen to her, but Drop Dead, I really like that song. And the new one she just released, I think it's called The Cure. And now it does sound, I was listening to it again, I think the beginning of it sounds like Foo Fighters, Everlong, I think. The beginning chords remind me of that. But once it gets into the song, it's fine. But I like the song a lot. And I like some of her other songs too, like Traitor, Driver's License. There's some other ones. But anyway, I was just thinking of a few things too, media-wise. And anyway, I've been going on and on and on for a while, but I guess I'm going to go for now, guys. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.